All right, guys. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but The Fast and the Furious 1, for the longest time, was my favorite movie of all time. Before we get started on this review, you can't go on without getting Nos first.
I need Nos. I need Nos. One of the big ones. Actually, let's make it two. Canary, I need it by tonight.
I got two of the big bottles. You'd know that joke if you saw the movie. Let's just talk about this for a second. Now, let me give you a little backstory when it comes to me and watching this movie. This movie came out in 2001, and there has been two movies in my life where I've seen a shit tons of times in the theater. Let me rephrase that because that sounded stupid. There has been two movies that I have watched in the theaters multiple times. Number one was The Avengers #1, and I watched that in theaters 5 times. Now, before that, the record of me watching a movie in theaters was 8 times. And it just so happens to be this movie, The Fast and the Furious. I gotta say, when I first watched this movie, I must have been like 18, 19, maybe 17, maybe, I don't know, around that time. And it was one of those movies where when I saw it, I immediately was like, wow, oh my God, look at all those cool cars. Oh, Vin Diesel. This is my first introduction to Vin Diesel, by the way. And then I saw him in Pitch Black. But it was the first time I got introduced to these characters. Paul Walker, Vin Diesel. Just the Fast and the Furious franchise, clearly. But this movie was so cool. I mean, it must have been cool if I saw it 7, 8 times in the theaters. I'm almost leaning towards 8 because I'm saying it, in reality it's actually 7. But on the 8th time, I snuck into the theater and watched the second half of it. So I'm not sure if that counts as a full viewing or not. But regardless, I watched it 8 times in the theater. Let's just get started with this. I mean, what's the plot of this movie? It revolves around Paul Walker, who is an undercover cop, and he is trying to infiltrate and get information about this gang who is pretty much hijacking 18-wheelers and taking all their electronic goods and stuff. And that's pretty much the base plot of this movie. And this movie, I gotta say, between all the Fast and the Furious movies that are out to this day, The Fast and the Furious 1 still, hands down, is my favorite of all time. Fast and the Furious 4, or Fast and Furious, I think that's the name, number 4, came pretty close to matching the realism of number 1. All the other movies, all the other Fast and the Furious movies, they were like completely over the top. It literally hit like Transformer type of disbelief when you watch those movies. Like, you had to go in knowing there's going to be lots of shit that you're going to see that is just not believable. But when it comes to number 1, everything that happens in this movie is believable. And for the most part, they were practically done. Let's just talk the characters for a split second. Paul Walker had not only amazing chemistry with Vin Diesel's character, Dominic Toretto. Those two guys, essentially, they made the movie. Okay? If it wasn't for those two guys, this movie, I don't think would be successful. It's playing in the background right now, too, because I just love this movie so much. The chemistry between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, it was so organic in the way they got introduced, how they didn't trust each other at first.
Brian, this is one of those times when you need to be very clear about what you say.
How they became friends. Ultimate betrayal happens when Vin Diesel knows the truth of who Paul Walker is. all of that was so, so good. The relationship between Paul Walker and Paul Walker's character and Mia, Dominic's sister.
Wanna go for a drive?
Their relationship grew very organically. I didn't feel like it was forced upon me. The relationship also between Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez is, I think her name is Letty. Yeah, Letty, duh. Their relationship was also very, very good. I mean, we have Michelle Rodriguez, a badass street racer chick. She's always been kind of like a Michelle Rodriguez, that is. She's always been kind of a tomboyish kind of character, but I enjoyed it in this role, and it worked very well opposite Vin Diesel, who Vin Diesel in this movie is, you know, he's like the alpha male. He's the head honcho. The introduction of Vin Diesel in this movie is Paul Walker goes into a little mom and pop shop that's run by Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel, and Mia. And Paul Walker keeps ordering these tuna sandwiches.
Every day for the last 3 weeks, you've been coming in here and you've been asking me how the tuna is now. It was crappy yesterday, it was crappy the day before, and guess what? Hasn't changed.
By the way, guys, I could recite this movie line for line. Like, me and my brothers, we could recite this movie line for line. If you look at all of our like past podcasts, all of our group like podcast, and every single podcast we make fun of Vin Diesel. It's just like an inside thing. But Vin Diesel's so incredible in this role. Anyways, Paul Walker goes in, orders the tuna sandwiches, and you know, Vin Diesel's in the background. He notices Mia, his sister, talking to Paul Walker, and it's like, I can tell Vin Diesel's like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, that's like coming around every single time. He grabs a drink, and he's eyeballing Paul Walker, and I gotta tell you, his presence in this movie, maybe it was just me because I watched it at age 18, 17, around that age. But when I saw Vin Diesel, there was no bigger action star with the presence of a Vin Diesel at that time, 2001. I mean, the one that came close to it is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I love the cars here. We got Mitsubishi Eclipses, we got Supras, we got RX-7s, Acura Integras, 1970s Dodge Charger. I mean, we have a whole Honda S2000, a Jettas. I mean, we got the whole gamut of cars here, and each one with their all unique looking specs and mods, and I mean, as a teenager, this movie is literally responsible for me having and buying throughout my life. I've had like 10 cars in my life, maybe more. But this movie is the one responsible for me buying an RX-7, buying a Supra, a Datsun 240Z, Japanese sports car. You gotta appreciate the cars that are in here. The street racing element. That's one thing that the new Fast and the Furious movies, they completely lack. They abandon what made Fast and the Furious, in my opinion, great to begin with. We don't get street racing anymore in the Fast and the Furious. Now it's all about like Ocean's 11 heists, and we need cars to, maneuver a certain way to get out of situations or steal safes like from the banks. And I don't know, man. Am I just crazy? Am I just losing it? Because I feel like the latest Fast and the Furious movies, I'm talking 5, 6, 7, they're kind of like shells of what the number one used to be. I mean, we went from like street racing in the streets and having that be exciting and character building and relationship building to literally cars flying from buildings to buildings to buildings and no one dying. Like, that's the extreme that we've gone from, like from that to that. So don't get me wrong, I enjoy both methods. It's just, looking back at number one, I completely missed that element of the Fast and Furious movies. This movie featured a whole bunch of plethora of like memorable characters, by the way. We already talked about Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. Michelle Rodriguez knocked it out of the park here. Mia, I don't remember her real name. Jordana Brewster. Yeah, I'm probably slaughtering her name. But she did an amazing job. She's always been amazing in these series. Now let's talk about, Johnny Tran, the bad guy. The bad guy here wasn't like the typical mustache trolling kind of bad guy.
SWAT came into my house, disrespected my whole family because somebody knocked me out. And you know what? It was you.
He was an Asian it kind of reminded me of like a Yakuza boss, but not really Yakuza. They just did a really, really good job of creating different street racing factions, if that makes sense. Like, we have the Japanese racers over here. We have, Paul Walker and Vin Diesel's gang over here. We got Ja Rule. Ja Rule was in this movie, okay? He has his brothers over here, like his gang over here. We got, oh my god, what's his name? Hector? I can't believe I forgot his name. Hector the Mexican, who plays the same character in every single movie he's ever been in. It's so funny. He always plays a gang member. And he was in on it, and his faction, I mean, they completely opened up the street racing world, and you could have easily told stories about all these different factions. By the way, let me just list off the favorite scenes of every. I could talk about this movie for an hour, solid, but clearly you wouldn't stay that long, or maybe you would. I don't know. Maybe you're a bigger fan than I am. Vin Diesel's. My favorite scene of Vin Diesel, hands down in this movie, was the last racing scene between Paul Walker's, I think it's a 1994 Toyota Supra, correct me if I'm wrong there, and Vin Diesel's 1970s Dodge Charger. And it's towards the end of the scene, they pull up to the light, and they're racing each other, again, for the second time in the movie. And I remember, guys, the first time I watched this movie, oh my god, the light turns green, they both go, but Vin Diesel's, it's the first time I've ever seen in a movie ever. Vin Diesel's Dodge Charger pops wheelies, boom, and I'm just like, I'm gonna try to reenact my face the first time I saw this on the big screen. Okay, now keep in mind, I'm 17, 18 years old, okay? I'm 33 now, okay? But at the time, I'm watching it, I'm waiting, I'm getting excited. Oh my god, they're gonna race. And then the light turns green and it's like, boom! And I'm just like, oh man! And I'm literally, I said that out loud. I'm like, oh man! And some of the people in the audience, in the seats next to me, kind of had that, who the fuck is that guy? Like, I was so amazed of what I just saw. It was amazing. That's the reason why I've seen this movie so many times, because it reminds me of how this movie just amazed me and inspired me, not as a filmmaker or anything like that, but I mean, it made movies enjoyable. Like, I still watch this movie, not daily or weekly, but, at least once a year. I watch this movie once a year, for sure. Michelle Rodriguez, I've talked about her briefly, but let's go in depth a little bit here. Well, not too in depth, but because there's not much to her character. But her relationship with Vin Diesel here was a very believable, organic relationship. She's the type of woman here in this movie that doesn't really take Dom shit. And at one point, my most memorable scene of Michelle Rodriguez in this movie is they're pulling up. It's the first street race of the movie, right? They pull up, the gang shows up, and Vin Diesel gets out of his car, starts talking to two blonde women. And Michelle Rodriguez, being the badass she is, she walks up to him and goes, meow. I fucking slaughtered that. But she goes, meow. I smell skanks. Why don't you get out of here before I let tread marks on your face? And the girls are like, okay, and then they walk away. But that's just how much of a badass her character is. Then we have Vince, okay? Vince is like Vin Diesel's childhood friend who hates Paul Walker because Vince loves Mia and wants to get together with Mia. But, Mia likes Paul Walker and blah, blah, blah. So there's like this automatic tension between those two. And it's just so refreshing. My memorable scene from Vince, okay, it's the first time he meets Paul Walker. And hold on a second, let me take a shot of Nos. Ooh, okay. I'm all juiced up again. It's the first time he meets Paul Walker in the restaurant, in the mom and pop shop of Dom's. And, Paul Walker's finishing up his tuna sandwich. And this movie does so many things right, even with the dialogue. You never hear dialogue like this. I haven't heard dialogue like this in a while, okay? But Paul Walker pays for the tuna fish sandwich. He goes, I'll see you tomorrow, Mia. And in Vince's mind, he doesn't want them to fucking talk anymore, right? Because he's a jealous motherfucker. And he follows Paul Walker out to his truck. And Vince goes, hey, why don't you try Fatburger from now on? You can get a double cheese with fries for $2.99, faggot. And Paul Walker's like, I like the tuna here. He goes, I like the tuna here. And Vince's response was pretty funny, because I would have probably said the same thing. He goes, bullshit, asshole, no one likes the tuna here. Of course, they start fighting. And, so you don't hear the words faggot anymore. Now it's politically incorrect. You don't hear it as much. Well, at least I don't hear it as much. I mean, you guys could, I don't know what type of movies you watch, but I definitely don't hear that word thrown around very loosely anymore. And then Ja Rule, my most memorable scene with him is when he's about to street race, right? Look out for this scene. I'll put it up as I'm talking about it, but Ja Rule's about to street race against Paul Walker, some Asian guy, I don't know his name, and then Vin Diesel. They're having a 4-way race, right? And Ja Rule's dating this Hispanic woman. And this Hispanic woman, I'm all spitting all over the joint. I'm all juiced up. This Hispanic woman comes up and grabs Ja Rule's hand and puts her right here. And she goes, this is yours. Whether you win or lose. But if you win, you get her too. And then Ja Rule turns around. There's this this black woman over here that's very attractive. And but look out for Ja Rule's hand. When he's like this, grabbing onto the fucking titty, you can tell like his hand was doing this shit. Like he was trying to fucking Ja Rule was trying to get the nipple, son. Like he was like trying to do this shit. But, the girl wasn't having it. She consented, and she was like, kind of trying to downplay it. But keep a close eye on that. I'll put an example up of what I mean. I found that hilarious. The funny thing is Ja Rule clearly loses the race. Here I am just rambling on about this movie and my favorite scenes. I hope you guys don't mind. I just really like this movie. And this is not like a typical review of like the good, the bad, and my rating here. My rating is a 10 out of 10, by the way. This movie kicks ass. 10 out of 10, solid. The best street racing movie I've ever seen in my life. Okay? Let's just put that out there. Let's get that out of the way. Ja Rule loses the race. And he goes up to his girl. And he's like, hey, what's up, girl? He goes, hey, what's up, girl? And she goes, nah, nigga. She goes, what's your problem, nigga? You didn't win. And all of Ja Rule's friends are like, oh. Shit. Damn, I'm knocking the mic. Anyways, there's like tons of funny moments like that all over the joint. Guys, I hope you like this. I'm not even going to call it a review. It's a discussion. I hope you guys like this discussion of the original Fast and the Furious. Did you guys like this movie? I mean, I know this is like a movie that was, it's been out for a long time. It's 2001. But, I think it still holds up. I think it still holds up in regards to like, just street racing movies in general. I mean, the one that came close was that movie Need for Speed, and that flopped. It was just a piece of shit movie. But let me know. I mean, I'm clearly doing this movie review because I'm gonna do the Fast 8 review this weekend or this Thursday or Friday. Hopefully they have a good justification for Vin Diesel being a bad guy. I don't know how that's gonna turn out, but let me know. Did you guys enjoy this movie as well as I did? I mean, I kid you not, guys. I can talk about this goddamn movie forever, all day. There's plenty of scenes that were just so good here. I mean, I'm not even touching upon Paul Walker's Mitsubishi Eclipse and his involvement with the FBI and the resolution between him and Vin Diesel. I mean, I'm leaving a lot to the, in case you do want to see it, I want to leave some surprises in this movie. But if you guys want to enjoy a good action film with street racing, good friend chemistry, some betrayal, good action, and a decent story, watch Fast and the Furious. You're going to enjoy it. It's one of those movies that where you just want to turn on and have a good time. Don't think about it too much, like, oh man, that would never happen. Like, this isn't one of those types of movies where you just constantly, like, you overanalyze the shit out of it. It's just a good, it's like a John Wick movie, to be honest with you. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys like this content. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tell me, I mean, am I crazy for liking this movie so goddamn much? I mean, when it comes to cars, the one that comes close to this is Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage. Anyways, guys, I'll see you this Thursday. Stay tuned. We will have way more reviews coming up. We will be doing all the Planet of the Apes movies from 2001's Mark Wahlberg movie going up in preparation for the up-and-coming Planet of the Apes movies. We will also be reviewing all the Alien movies leading up to Prometheus, the next Alien movie. And also, we'll be reviewing all the Spider-Man movies leading up to Spider-Man Homecoming. So stay tuned for that, guys. And until then, I'll see you next time. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up and a comment. Tell me what you guys thought of this movie. Later. Bye.